Ain't gonna let no governor turn me round. I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking. I'm marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking. I'm marching up to freedom land.
So it's really a tremendous honor to be able to welcome Margaret Block to the University of Florida and to Gainesville. For well over half a century, Margaret Block has been a creative and conscientious community organizer for justice and equality. She was a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, active in Bolivar County, Mississippi, throughout the state, throughout the region. She led protests against apartheid in South Africa. She led demonstrations against U.S. imperialism in Central America in the 1980s. And more recently, she played an instrumental role in the election of the first African-American sheriff in Bolivar County, Mississippi since Reconstruction. We're very proud to see that Gainesville has welcomed Margaret with open arms, and I want to point out that her interview with University of Florida Oral History Program was published in this edition of the wonderful Gainesville Iguana. And so I want to thank the folks at the Iguana for publishing that interview. And Margaret will also be speaking tomorrow at the Occupy the Courts event at Bo Diddley Plaza around 1 o'clock with Dr. Cornell West and others. And just out of curiosity, how many folks plan to attend that event? So we have an overlap in audience participation. Very good. So we've been traveling, the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program has been traveling to Mississippi each fall for 4 years to interview veterans of the civil rights movement. We load up in 2 vans, we make the drive. The drive is a commitment, you have to understand, because, and the students are laughing, it's a 12-hour drive. So it's a bonding experience. It's a real kind of movement experience, if you will. For the past 3 years, Margaret Block has been our main guide and mentor and agitator in this experience. To travel with Margaret throughout Mississippi is a wonderful undertaking because she's a trusted community organizer, because people of the Delta, even those who disagree with her, and there are those people, but even if they disagree with her, they respect her, her integrity, her sense of struggle and justice on behalf of others. And so everywhere you go, and if Margaret is with you, doors open. And the magic words are essentially, we are traveling with Margaret Block. And that opens the door for you, really almost anywhere you want to go. Now, we're oral historians, and oral history is based on a reciprocal relationship. We do not take University of Florida students to the Mississippi Delta to study people. We take UF students to the Delta to learn from the residents of that storied region. And a copy of each interview that we conduct is given to the Sunflower County Civil Rights Organization to use in its civil rights educational program in the area, in the region. And to date, thanks to the work of our students, we have collected nearly 110 oral history interviews. In addition, with the guidance of Margaret Block and other movement veterans, we hold an annual symposium on the history of the civil rights movement in the Delta. And this is not just an event where we talk about the history of the movement, but we talk about the relevance of the movement to today's struggles in Mississippi and in the Delta in particular. Just to give you an idea, at our last symposium this past September at Delta State, there were over 150 participants who came out in the audience, many of them middle school and high school kids. They interact with people like Lawrence Guillot, who's one of our keynote speakers this year. Lawrence Guillot, of course, was the chair of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, the most important third party in American history. If you want to know about the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, and a lot of other innovations, you look to Mississippi. Mississippi was really the core of the movement. And so we hold the symposium and we invite people. Like this year, we also had Rose Turner, who's the lead organizer for the United Food and Commercial Workers, the Catfish Workers Union Organizing Project. So I'm just trying to give you a sense of what we do when we go to the Delta. It isn't just about going and doing interviews, it's about trying to make oral history relevant to people's lives today. Over the past few years, we've learned much about the Mississippi Delta, and we have learned that thanks to the courageous members of groups like the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, many things have changed in the Delta, but many things have not. There is still endemic, crushing poverty in the region, alongside of unbelievable wealth. And one of the unplanned educational activities, which I cannot replicate in a classroom, is simply driving into the backside of Greenwood, Mississippi, after you have passed through miles and miles of shotgun shacks, people living in really impoverished conditions, and then driving down a magnificent avenue of enormous mansions that you would associate with Gone with the Wind in its glory days. So there's those extremes to this day: enormous poverty, enormous wealth. And one of the things that we try to do is to study the relationship between those two things. Because we're social action oriented as oral historians, we're asking you tonight, members of the audience, many of you organizers in your own right, to do this kind of social action work this evening. Margaret has requested that we as a community ask Dr. Cornell West and Tavis Smiley to bring their poverty program to the Mississippi Delta, to shine a light on poverty, the way in which the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee tried to do in the 60s, people like Michael Harrington, the Other America, people like Upton Sinclair, Dorothea Lange, and so many others. So we're asking members of the Gainesville community to actually get in contact with Dr. Cornell West and Tavis Smiley. They're speaking tomorrow, of course. And as I understand, there may be a way, they have a website, is that correct? That you can actually just dial into and just send a simple message. Please bring your program to the Delta. And we would greatly appreciate that, because we know we have poverty here in Gainesville, we know we have poverty in New York, we have poverty in Washington State, but let's not forget our brothers and sisters in the Delta. And let's do something positive as a community to expose the injustices, not just here, but to people in the Mississippi Delta. Before I introduce my colleague, Zahara Simmons, who's going to take over the facilitating the program, I do want to make a few announcements. First, I want to thank our co-sponsors. They're listed on the program. Without these co-sponsors, we really couldn't do what we do in the oral history program. I also want to thank the staff of the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. These are students, staff, and volunteers who put in tremendous amounts of time and energy. I've been asked to make an announcement about the question cards in your program. They're colored green, and we're going to have a question and answer session after Margaret Block speaks, and Dr. Simmons will be facilitating that. If you have a question, please write your question out on the card and pass your cards to the student ushers, and they'll be on either side of the room. They'll be collecting those cards periodically, and then at the end we'll kind of put those together and do Q&A that way. Two other public programs that the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program is organizing that are coming up really quickly. On February 7th, Peter Wood is coming to our community, and Peter is going to be talking about an amazing painting that was done around Andersonville, the horrific prison of war camp in Georgia. And Peter is a distinguished professor, emeritus professor at Duke University in African American history, and that event is going to start Tuesday, it's going to occur Tuesday, February 7th at 6 p.m. at the Harlem Museum, and there's an announcement of that in your program. And then finally, the students who go with us or to the Mississippi Delta each year are actually going to be doing a presentation at the Civic Media Center February 22nd at 7 p.m. And you'll get a chance to hear firsthand from the students what they're learning in the Delta. The poetry books in back, I believe, are, and these are poetry books. Sarah Block, one of our staff people, is holding them up. Poetry, penned by Margaret Block, and I think those are selling for $5? Okay, $5. Well worth the price. Great poetry. And I think at this time, I need to turn the podium over to a group of students from UF who are going to make a presentation. Is that correct? Okay, where are those students? Okay. Naila Summers and Caroline Vickers are UF undergraduates.
Margaret, on behalf of the students that you have inspired and the movements you have led, please accept this plaque as a token of our appreciation. The plaque reads,
Presented to Margaret Block in recognition of your unwavering commitment to social justice and equality. Presented by the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, University of Florida, January 19, 2012.
All right, now it's my great honor to be able to introduce a dear colleague, Dr. Gwendolyn Zohar Simmons. And I really cannot tell you how lucky we are to have Zohar Simmons with us in this community as a professor, as an educator, as a fellow community organizer. She is phenomenal. She is the role model for so many of us. And she's currently an assistant professor at the assistant professor of religion. She's an affiliated faculty member in the Women's Studies Department. Dr. Simmons received her BA from Antioch University in Human Services and her MA and PhD in religion with a specific focus in Islam from Temple University, as well as a graduate certificate in Women's Studies. She was also a member, an integral member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. She arrived, as she says, in 1962 to attend college at the very beginning of the sit-in movement. Her parents warned her to not get involved initially. You can imagine how dangerous it was back then, but also lest she lose her scholarship. And for a while, she says she followed their advice, like a good daughter would. But when the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee activists came in person and approached her for her help, she began to feel that she needed to get involved. She avoided the cameras and arrests at first, but soon decided to join her friends in song as they were being dragged away by the police. This was the start of life, as she put it, putting communal goals before individual goals. As part of Freedom Summer of 1964, Dr. Simmons helped build freedom schools and libraries in Black communities in Mississippi. Overall, she spent 7 years working full-time on voter registration and desegregation activities in Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. She continued her commitment to civil and human rights by working as a staff member for the American Friends Service Committee, a Quaker Peace Justice and international development organization headquartered in Philadelphia for 23 years. And again, we are very lucky that Dr. Simmons is here with us as a faculty member and a member of our community. So please join me in welcoming her to the podium.
Greetings, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many of you out. I'm so happy about this. I mean, anybody who saw me out there with the Occupy folk, it was like, I'm so happy to see you, you know. So I feel the same about seeing you here tonight. Thanks, Paul, for that kind introduction. And before getting a shot at my introduction of Margaret Block, I want to say how happy I am that Paul Ortiz is the director of the Samuel Proctor Oral History Project. And of course, to congratulate him and his staff and the wonderful graduate and undergraduate students who make this program such a success and so relevant to the burning issues of our time. The program tonight, of course, is a wonderful example of the work that the project does in bringing living history to our campus and to the Gainesville community. So hats off to the staff, the students, and director of the project. It's really with great pleasure that I have the opportunity tonight to introduce my sister, my SNCC comrade, Ms. Margaret Block. And as you've already heard, she's a civil and human rights activist, an anti-war activist, an anti-imperialist organizer. And it's so wonderful to have her here in our community. In the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, we used to say that we were a band of brothers and a circle of trust. That was, before you needed to add women into everything. And so I just want you to know, we did say a band of brothers and a circle of trust. And we forged an unbreakable fraternity that was tested over and over in the crucible of the civil rights movement. People in that movement became family when your own family maybe turned their back on you, as you heard happen to me. And SNCC was my family. As we were youth, mainly being rounded up together by vicious sheriffs and their deputized racists who threw you into paddy wagons, carted you off to jail, subjecting you to torture and all forms of harassment together. This cemented a bond that could not be broken. When we get together at our reunions, it's as if the 30 or 40 years that have elapsed have not even elapsed. It's like we're right back where we were. We embrace, we sing freedom songs together, and reflect upon the struggles we were engaged in, and almost everybody I know continues to be engaged in. During the movement days, everyone on the front lines had to prove that they were ready to be in this nonviolent army. But within SNCC, while everyone was bad, B-A-D, good, ready to go to jail, and even to die for freedom, the one group that we all paid homage to was the SNCC Mississippi Field staff. They were the baddest. And if you ever heard Nina Simone sing Mississippi Goddamn, then you might have some sense of why we looked up to the brave men and women who were on the front lines in Mississippi. And Margaret was one of those rough and ready SNCCers from Mississippi. We all knew that if anybody could crack that state, they could do it. And we believed in them. I was so impressed with the Mississippi delegation, with Margaret, her brother Sam, whom I knew, and many others who were in that Mississippi theater, that it just made me say, I gotta go, I gotta be one of them. I really was so impressed. Margaret's going to tell her own story, so I won't. But let me tell you that she's been in the movement all of her life, since she was about 10 years old. And she comes from a family of activists. I mentioned her brother, but her father was an activist. Her uncle was an activist. And let me tell you, back then, that was no easy path to walk. It was dangerous. and yet they were in it. Margaret had the great fortune of knowing Medgar Evers, Amzie Moore, whom you probably have not heard of, but he's one of the great civil rights activists of Mississippi who really was responsible for SNCC going into Mississippi. Margaret, like many of the SNCC organizers, myself included, was galvanized by the brutal murder of Emmett Till in 1955. Even though we were all really young, it was like we knew this had to stop. This ignited her simmering desire to become active in the movement. In 1961, when she graduated from high school, she began teaching at the citizenship schools that taught literacy and voter registration. And it was in 1962 that she joined SNCC and became a field secretary for that organization. So we share that year because I was in Atlanta becoming involved with SNCC in 1962 also. So Margaret proclaims proudly that she got her education in the movement, and so did I. And that outranks any other education I've ever gotten. It is with such pleasure and love that I welcome you to the Gainesville community again, and to our student body and faculty here at UM.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm from Mississippi, so when you say good evening, okay? They say we the most hospitable state in the country, and we are. I've been walking around campus forgetting that I'm down here speaking to people, because you speak to people. I'm happy to be here. I've been working with Paul for, 4 years? And they always come to me, but I've never had an opportunity to come and see where they really came from, and I love it. And thank you guys. That's my crew over there in the corner. They have been really, really special and nice to me. You don't invite a poet to be on to the podium because you know I'm going to do my poetry first. I talk about people and get away with it. That's why I started writing poetry. And I cussed a lot, and I didn't want to curse as much as I did. Okay, so the first piece I'm going to read is America, America. It's how I think of America. I think I might have offended a couple of people today when I did it, but that it's all in the game. America is the biggest rogue out of all of the nations. They're running the country like it's a big plantation. Corruption and confusion is the American way. There are high-class criminals running America today. Do you remember Jack Abramoff, Carl Rove, Scooter Libby, and Tom DeLay? And I recently read about Congressman Foley and Bob Ney. When I think of Bush and Cheney, it makes my blood boil, because they will kill their own grandma for a quart of oil. Corporate America is going too far. They're treating their workers like an old broke-down car. They're sending all of the jobs away to exploit foreign workers for cheaper pay. But God is going to settle the score because they're making middle-class citizens the nouveau poor. It's getting hard for us to meet our basic needs, and we know it's all because of corporate America's greed. The utility companies treat us like scum. They're no better than Attila the Hun because they're sticking us up without a gun. They will raise the rates whenever they will and will call you stupid if you question the bill. Then they will say that we're stupid and spoiled. But we know the story, and it's all about oil. The media is playing a dangerous game. They're trying to drive Americans insane. When you watch the morning news, do you get the feeling that they're trying to keep you confused I think it's profane and profound that they're trying to dummy all of us down. When you hear this poem, don't take offense, but we're a damn sight smarter than the president. Oh, excuse me, Georgie boy, but why do you think the world is your personal toy? I want to ask you a question, and I don't mean any harm, but why are you trying to destroy Islam? If you happen to die and make it to heaven, what would you do if some of the angels looked like Muslims and not like you? I bet you would take it extremely hard if you found out that Allah is the exact same person that you call God. And if by some miracle you came back, would you rescind the Patriots Act? Would you then teach about the teachings of Jesus, about love and goodwill and peace on earth? Or would you keep slinging that same old dirt? America is supposed to be the home of the brave and the land of the free. It never was the case for me, where we were the brave but not the free. And when I think of my dear friend Fannie Lou, she questioned America, and I do too. Thank you. Thank you. This is all of them my favorites until I write a new one. That's my favorite. But I want to do the ways of church, folks. I know it, I don't have to look for it. You see the church and you see the steeple. Just go inside and check out the people. Although the people are nicely dressed, the church is where you will find the biggest mess. There's a mess in the choir and a mess that the pastor can't disclose. There's even a mess on the deacon board. Look at Deacon Gibson down on his knees, just praying and moaning about going to heaven. Well, that Saturday night, he was down on his knees, shooting dice and shouting, 7 come 11. You see Sister Janie as she prays and shouts. Well, the very next day, she'll treat her neighbors like dirt and will cuss them all out. Sister Mary comes to church every Sunday, and she can really sing. Well, I bet you don't know that she's a casino queen. She even lost the money on the penny machine. In some churches, they have little cliques, and they just like toxic waste and will make you sick. They stand around and talk about how other people dress and will be the first ones to tell you, child, God don't bless no mess. This poem is a warning to the churches of today. Be sincere when you sing and preach and pray. And don't stand around and talk about how other people dress. After all, you are the ones that said, child, God don't bless no mess. Thank you. I wrote that in church. I'm going to do pecking order. I had gotten upset with somebody from Jackson State. Well, I can call his name because his name is Leslie McLemore. He was the director. Oh, I dedicated it to him at the conference. So everybody at Jackson State, every time I go down there, where you gonna do pecking order? So I guess that's my theme poem when I go to Jackson State, because everybody know I just had to encourage this. He bullied everybody. And I told him, oh, brother, I'm from the Delta. You ought to know better. So we just had little rounds. I call him Mr. Wonderful. He think it's a compliment. There seems to be a pecking order in place. But the trouble is, the ones pecking on top seem to be pecking in the wrong place. Some politicians are like bottom feeders. When we get them elected, they no longer need us. They will see you somewhere and won't know your name, and will treat you like a penny that's waiting for change. When it comes to community outreach, they won't give a dime, but they won't hesitate to call you come election time. Some people get a position and get high off of power, and they don't care who they devour. They will set their own brothers up for the slaughter, just to be in the pecking order. Some preachers call themselves community leaders, but we know their game, and it's called pimping Jesus. They'll preach a sermon that'll go through the roof. Well, the brothers ought to know that Jesus is pimp-proof. They will beg their congregation for the very last quarter just to make an impression on the pecking order. Some sisters waste a lot of time just running behind the pecking line. They run around in their little cliques trying to figure out some pecking tricks. They'll tell you things that just ain't true. They will talk about me and will lie on you. They will talk about people and they don't even know their names, just trying to play the pecking game. This poem is a warning for our sons and our daughters. Do not get caught up in the pecking disorder. Vote or Die is in the book, but I didn't write it I've never recited it because I wrote it as a play for Black history for the kids at my church. Each one had a poet and teaching them about the people like Diane, Nash, and, you know, my brother and Miss Hamer and a lot of different people that were in the movement. Okay, here we go, Justice and Jive. It's a history poem of American justice from my perspective. Some people don't get it, but anyway. Justice wasn't in America's plan when they took away the Indian nation's land, like the Arapaho, the Apache, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Navajo, and many more. Was it a just plan when they banished them to an isolated land and infected them with smallpox and hives? You just knew that they wouldn't survive. These injustices can never be justified. You call it justice, but we call it jive. Where was justice when slavery abounded? Perhaps she was helping old masters keep Swobo's nose to the ground. They took away his children, his culture, and his identity, but they could not take his dignity. Madam Justice, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. You call it justice, but it's just another word for jive. Justice was nowhere around when all of the lynchings were going down. The Klan strung us up and didn't try to hide because they knew that justice wasn't on our side. When Billie Holiday sang Strange Fruit, she was singing about dead bodies swinging from a poplar tree. She could have been singing about you and me. She knew that justice would never preside. You call it justice, but Billy called it jive. Justice comes with a dollar sign, although justice is supposed to be blind. I can't buy justice and pay my rent. I make minimum wage with no benefits. It seems to me that justice is only for the rich. If you don't have money, justice will be denied. You call it justice, but it's just another word for jive. If justice is really colorblind, then why are so many black and brown brothers doing time? You locked them up on some homemade facts, but that was always your plan of attack. Langston Hughes once said that justice is a blind goddess to whom we blacks are wise. Her bandage covers two festering sores that once perhaps were eyes. You call it justice, but Langston called it jive. Madam Justice must be really tired. She's permitting the cops to do black profiles. They watch us and stop us for no good reasons. We're just like sitting ducks during hunting season. It's about time for justice to be on our side. You call it justice, but it's just another word for jive. Mr. President, if justice is really intact, then why did you create the Patriots Act? Your homeland security is an injustice in disguise. Mr. President, unlike justice, we're not blind, we all have eyes. You call it justice, but it's just another word for jive. Now, Mrs. Bush, justice had to be deaf, mute, and blind when you helped create that No Child Left Behind. You're setting children up for a great big fall. But Mrs. Bush, an injustice to one is an injustice to all. Justice should be on the children's side. You call it justice, but even the children know it's jive. Where was justice when Katrina went down? Perhaps she was hiding out with the FEMA director, that incompetent Michael Brown. The people at the Superdome sent up a prayer and hoped that FEMA would soon be there. Bush and Brown really didn't care. They hoped that they all had just floated away while they schemed and lied and created an inexcusable delay. But someone once said that justice delayed is justice denied. You call it justice, but the whole world call it jive. This is for my young black brothers. I did it today with a group of young black men. Let me get some more of my. For my young black brothers, you're going to be an outstanding black man if you have goals, dreams, and a master plan. Stay in school and don't go astray. You might be like Dr. Montreal Green and become a superintendent one day. He's a young man that always had a plan, and now he is an outstanding black man. Don't sell drugs and hang out with thugs. For you, an education is your only way. You're not all gangbangers as the media portray. You're young, you're gifted, you're handsome and black. You're a good student, but they will never tell that. But you have goals, dreams, and a master plan, and you're going to be an outstanding black man. Don't diss women and call them B's and W's. Respect all women, especially your mother, because she's a God-fearing woman that always had a plan. And she's the reason why you're an outstanding young man. Be a positive role model to all of your brothers. Tell them to stop selling drugs and killing each other, to trust in God and love one another, because they all are some beautiful black brothers. To my middle-class brothers, since you all are black, why do you want to diss them because you think that they came from the wrong side of the track? I told you once that they're young, they're gifted, they're handsome and black, so excuse them while they pat themselves on the back. Society's plan is for you to fail, so you can end up in somebody's jail where you don't like orange jumpsuits or overcrowded cells. You're an achiever and you're going to do well, so tell them to excuse you while you mess up their plans, but you're going to be an outstanding black man. Society will put you on hold and tell you to wait, but you've got to be just like Job and stand on your faith, because God has the master plan, and you're going to be an outstanding black man. This is one that I wrote for Bush. I actually sent it to him. I never heard another word from him though. But let me tell you, I got scared because I had written this and mailed this to Bush. One day I'm just sitting at home and FBI called me. I almost had a stroke. Oh my God. And I almost told her, well, Margaret Block is deceased, and I went, you might die for real. He lied. And so, but it didn't have nothing to do with this poem. It was just, we working on cold case murder from the civil rights era, and she wanted to interview me about some of the cold cases that I know about, but it scared me to death. It says, dear Mr. Bush, we know bullshit when we smell it, but you have the nerve to try and sell it. Why don't we have adequate health care for all Americans today? Why don't you tell us about the enemy combatants at Guantanamo Bay? But on the other hand, we don't believe anything that you have to say. And at the end of the day, this is what the people had to say. Bullshit is nothing but chewed up hay, and we do know bullshit when we smell it. Thank you. I'm going to do a piece that I really like, and I wrote it for Obama when he was first ran, and it's called voted, if you don't vote, don't cry. If you don't vote, don't cry. We already told you to vote or die. When things get really bad and you have to walk because you can't buy gas and your walk is no longer all spiffy and spry, well, walk on, brother, because if you don't vote, don't cry. When you go to the store and the prices have gone through the ceiling and hit the sky, and you walking around cussing and telling everybody that these prices are too damn high and you don't know what you're gonna buy, and if you didn't vote, don't cry. We already told you to vote or die. If you find yourself between a rock and a hard place and you can't pay your mortgage and have to downsize to a smaller space, and you feel all disgusted and distressed and you can't keep a tear from your eye, well, if you don't vote, don't cry. If you get laid off from your job and things for you were already hard, and you know that they sent your job to another land, and all you could do is just throw up your hand and ask God why, well, if you don't vote, don't cry. If you get really ill and you have to go to the doctor, and you can't go to the doctor because you can't pay the bill, not to mention buying those expensive pills, and you feel just like you're gonna die, well, if you don't vote, don't cry. If you go off to school and you complied with all of the rules, but you can't get a grant or student loan and have to pack your bags and move back home, and you all are angry and upset and tell your mama that the world is just passing you by, and if you don't vote, don't cry. If you lose your food stamps in Section 8 and you call your worker to get it straight, and she tells you that John McCain cut your benefits and didn't say why, and you just let out a heavy sigh, well, if you don't vote, don't cry. We already told you to vote or die. Thank you. This is, and then I'm gonna get to what I'm supposed to be doing, Well, anyway, never to invite a poet, because that's just the way it is. Amiri Barack would do the same thing to you if you had him here. Oh, okay. Someone said, oh, what a tangled web we weave, when first we practiced to deceive. When you gave people those subprime loans, you knew that they couldn't pay their mortgage and would lose their homes. And now you find yourself in a meltdown sweat, but you just got tangled in your own damn net. And you have your neck in a noose. Well, the buzzards are just coming home to roost. The bankers and stockbrokers were on Wall Street playing gangster games in their Armani suits and were paying themselves a lot of loot. They were making millions, which was a sign of the times, and they greeted each other with dollar signs. They thought that they knew what it was all about, but now they're begging the feds to bail them out. They are under a lot of pressure, but they cook their own goose. Well, the buzzards are just coming home to roost. The feds are going to bail the banks and Wall Street out of their mess because they say that the country is in distress. But God is only settling the score. They will help the rich, but not the poor. We, the people of the United States of America, who live in the alleys and on the side streets, and the homeless citizens that have to live in the streets, have always been in a panic and under stress, and have no money to invest. The feds treat us like society's caboose, but now the buzzards have finally come home to roost. Somebody told me that it's the chickens. Malcolm was talking about the chickens, but these guys on Wall Street and bankers, they just buzzards. A buzzard is when you prey on people, and that's what they did. Okay. I got this one that I might do it. This is for my young ladies. I wrote this for my granddaughter. I wrote that for my young black brothers, for my grandson. For their birthdays, I don't send them birthday cards. I write a piece of poetry for them. And this is for my granddaughter, Samaya. I am the image of the beautiful black child. I greet friends and strangers with my Kool-Aid smile. I listen to my mom and she listens to me. She's one of my best friends and a queen to me. She's the kind of woman that I hope to be. She's the reason why I have a Kool-Aid smile, because I am her phenomenal black child. I don't follow the leader, I have plans of my own. I'm going to do the right thing and never do wrong. I have hopes and dreams and a Kool-Aid smile. That's why I am a beautiful black child. I'm going to take the high road and never the low. You see, I'm just starting out and I have a long way to go. I may slip and I may slide, but I'm not going to fall by the wayside, because I am the image of the beautiful black child. Some people may think I'm stupid just because I'm black, but I'm a big bag of chips and all of that. I'm smart, I'm talented, and I know I have style. I am the image of the beautiful black child. I have a great mind and I'm going to do well. I'm an achiever and I'm going to excel. I'm an A student, but I'm meek and I'm mild. I am, in essence, a beautiful black child. Thank you. Now, what they say, on with the show. First, I want to tell you, I'm going to get into the freedom songs because that's what I do. I find just standing up, I can stand up and lecture, that's, but it is, after a while, it's just boring. Give you stats and all of that stuff, that's boring after a while. So I try not to do it, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Regional Council on Negro Leadership was formed in 1953 in Cleveland, Mississippi, and it was formed by Amzie Moore, Medgar Evers, Dr. T.R.M. Howard. These names don't mean anything to you. Dr. T.R.M. Howard and Dr. Aaron Henry and Mrs. Burnside and Mr. Gus Courts. The purpose of them to form, the reason they formed this organization is because they had been trying to get people registered to vote, but they formed it to teach citizenship because they had a test, a literacy test that people had to take just a way, there's a means to keep people from voting, and a poll tax. So they got together and would pay poll tax for people so they could register, but they had to teach in a citizenship school, and then they taught responsibilities too about paying your property taxes and helping people in the community. I was fortunate enough to have hung around with Mr. Amzie Moore and with all of them, because they would all meet at Amzie's house. And my uncle lived next door. And I've been nosy all of my life. Because I'd sneak through Mr. Amzie's house. I'd go in there and sit up under the table and listen to their conversations, which was invaluable to me. And after that, Amzie he met Ms. Ella Baker in Atlanta, and that was in 1960, I think 59 or 60, when he met Ms. Ella Baker, and he told her that the Regional Council of Negro Leadership wasn't functioning anymore because, like Dr. T.R.M. Howard, who was a surgeon in Mound Bayou, ran out of Mound Bayou, and Mr. Courts got ran out of Belzoni, and a lot of them got killed, and like Mr. Lee, a lot of them got murdered, so they wasn't functioning. And Ella Baker told him to organize the young people, because the young people had the courage where they failed. We had the courage to do something, and he came back. And he brought Diane Nash and Jim Bevel to Cleveland, and that was they were my mentors, besides my brother, but he doesn't count, But they were my mentors. And we would just meet and talk about, voter registration, how to get the people interested in stuff. But one thing is, but it's been a tradition ever since slavery, labor movements, everything, to have songs. So Mrs. Baker told us to start singing. You can organize people around those, singing. And that is what we did. We sang, we would go to church on Sunday and scared to come to the meetings, but they fell in love with the songs, and they'd ask, you gonna sing those songs tonight? And I'm going, yeah, that's what we do. Of course we're gonna sing them. And they would come to the church just to join in the freedom singing. And after we got them all, it's just like church, you get the choir to sing before the preacher get up. Well, that's what we were doing. We would start singing those freedom songs, and people would just come and be happy and join the movement before they even knew what was going on. These songs are at the Smithsonian in D.C. It's called The Voices of the Civil Rights Movement. If you want to check them out, you can order them off of Amazon. And I always tell the stories and sing the songs and tell why we were singing the songs. Because one of the first songs we would sing, Zahara Saad, was what? Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more lynchings, no more lynchings, no more lynchings over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No injustice, no injustice, no injustice over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more Jim Crow, no more Jim Crow, no more Jim Crow over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. You believe in freedom, sing it. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. That was what we opened our meetings with, oh, freedom. And those songs, and the way things are looking now with the Tea Party and all of that craziness, crazy Republicans, crazy people, absolutely insane. They had Herman Cain up there. Herman Cain, then I might be a Herman Cain tonight because stuff might, Rick Perry, oh man. But you might have to have, it's gonna be a reason. It's coming up again, as my mama always said. It's coming up again. You better be prepared because you can organize with music. I like music, so that's what you can. That's how you organize, because you give people courage. Because I know I was scared and singing, but I would sing because I was scared. So we just, would sing these songs. And my song was when I got ran out of Tallahatchie County in the back of a hearse one day. I was mad. I was scared then. I got really, really angry. Because I'm going, why are you going to run? I mean, who's scared of them? But I laid my pride to the side and I took that ride. I got in the hearse. So I wasn't that brave. I got in that hearse that day. But I got mad and I went back. They ran me out again. I was like a little bad penny. I kept turning up. I went to the other side of the county. They ran me out in the middle of the night. Some people had to come get me. And I got mad. I went back to Tallahatchie County. They left me alone when they saw that I wasn't scared of them. They didn't know that I wasn't scared of them, but I was scared. Who wouldn't be? And it's bad when you're 18 years old and thinking you might die. It might be your last time. As hard as I remember that song we used to sing, this may be my last time. It may be my last time. I don't know. I can't sing it because I've forgotten the word. I forgot the word. I've forgotten the tune. Be my last time. This may be my This may be my last time. It may be my last time. I don't know. It may be my last time. I don't know. That's about all I can remember the words to it. But, I mean, we were serious because it could have been our last time. But after I went back to Tallahatchie County, I went back to Tally, and I went back singing and swinging. I'm going to tell you why. Because once we had taken the family that I was living with, the Brewer brothers, to register to vote. And we knew that we were going to be attacked that night, but we were prepared for them. We gave them a surprise. When they came out there where we were living, we shot up in the air to let them know that we were fully armed and had them surrounded. And we were going to make Molotov cocktails, and Stokely going to tell me, we making Molotov cocktails tonight, and I'm going, well, bring me a Coke because I don't drink. I didn't know what a Molotov, I had just gotten out of school. I didn't know nothing about a Molotov cocktail. And I told them, I don't drink. Oh, man. Every time I would see them, Ed Brown, who recently passed away, and they would just point at me, and we would just start laughing because that night, like I told you, the Klan came. They thought that we were some sitting ducks or something, but they found out that we were armed and we meant business. But we were in the kitchen and we were staying with the Mrs. Brewer, who was 86 years old, and she was trying to help. We had the gas in there, pouring the gas in the bottles, and she was trying to pour gas, and the gas was wasting all over the table. So Ed said, Margaret, if this house get burned up tonight, they gonna swear the Klan did it, and it's gonna be Miss Brewer. It's gonna be Miss Brewer. That was, the next day they sent the game warden out there with the warrant for my arrest, saying that I was out there hunting deers out of season. The game warden looked, and we told him, the guy Fred Mangum, we just looked and told him, we city kids, we've never even seen a deer. What are you talking about? But anyway, this is my song. We all had our songs, and this is my song. I sing it everywhere. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. And I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up the freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking, I'm marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let the KKK turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let the KKK turn me round. I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking. I'm marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me round. I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking. I'm marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let Ross Barnett turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let Ross Barnett turn me round. I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking. I'm marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no governor turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let no governor turn me round. I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking. I'm marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on a walking, keep on a talking. I'm marching up to freedom land. Thank you. That's my song. Everybody know. I was in the choir. I'm gonna tell you this story too. I talk and sing. I was in the choir, joined the choir at church. You know, the reason I joined the choir was because I don't like to sit with my back to the door. That's a sneak rule, wasn't it? Sit where the horizontal, you know. You sit where you can see who's coming in. I got in the choir. I'm sitting up there, they singing, and I started singing and just wore it out. People just looked at me, and I'm going, oh my God, what is she doing? But I just got carried away. The musician was really playing, and he was egging me on. He knew what, the musician just started rocking the house, the church. But it was okay, because the pastor got up and said, you better listen to what she's saying. Because, he was a social justice preacher, and he would start telling them. But I was in the choir because I'd like to see who's coming. Not that I'd like to sing, because I didn't know any church songs. I knew them, but these were freedom songs. This song is really sad. It's about, you remember Bertha Gober? Bertha wrote this song after Mr. Lee got killed in Belzoni. And it's called We've Been Built. It's an old spiritual. But she sang, we've been built down, we've been scorned, we've been talked about as sure as you born, but we'll never turn back. No, we'll never turn back until we've all been freed and we have equality. No, we'll never turn back. We have hung our heads and cried for He died for you and he died for me. He died for the cause of equality. No, we'll never turn back. We have walked through the shadows of death, and we had to walk all by ourselves. No, we'll never turn back until we've all been freed and we have equality. No, we'll never turn back. We have spent our time in jail with no money for to go our bail, but we'll never turn back. No, we'll never turn back until we've all been free and we have equality. No, we'll never turn back. This is we had all kind of songs, and we would all sing. This was almost a sneak theme song called Woke Up This Morning. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Well, we woke up this morning with my mind, Lord, stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, we preaching and singing the mind stayed on freedom. Well, preaching and singing with my mind stored, stayed on freedom. Preaching and singing with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Well, I'm walking and talking with my mind, Lord, stayed on freedom. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, where you walk, or where you talk, or with your mind on freedom. Walk, talk, or with your mind on freedom. Walk, or where you talk, or with your mind on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, it ain't no harm to keep your mind stayed on freedom. Well, it ain't no harm to keep your mind, Lord, stayed on freedom. It ain't no harm to keep your mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Whoa, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind, Lord, stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. And we would walk around the courthouse with our little picket signs, and we would be, I looked and a cop was kind of keep tapping his feet. I'm going, oh, he's, he was tapping his feet, you know, right along with the songs. And I'm going, oh, this is weird. But music could move anybody. You can move a nation with music. That's why I'm for music. If you get to fight, if you want to have if you get into a squabble with somebody or you have a competition with somebody, sing it out. Just sing. Start singing and see what'll happen if somebody's arguing. Just start singing and see what they do. That's what I do. You know, this song was one of my brother's favorite songs, and my brother was a singer. My brother could sing. He didn't sing, he could sing. But anyway, he loved Jesus is on the main line, and he went to jail in Greenwood, stayed there for about 6 months, and the judge would call him to court and tell him if he would leave Greenwood, that they let him out. If he would renounce SNCC and leave Greenwood, they would let him out of jail, and he would bust out in the courtroom singing, Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Well, Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Oh, if you want your freedom, tell him what you want. If you want your freedom, tell him what you want. If you want your freedom, tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Oh, Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Oh, if you want your equal rights, tell him what you want. If you want your equal rights, tell him what you want. If you want your equal rights, tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Oh, Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line, tell him what you want. Jesus Jesus is on the main line. Tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Oh, if you're down and you're bound in jail, tell him what you want. If you're down and you're bound in jail, tell him what you want. If you're down and you're bound in jail, tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Oh, Jesus is on the main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line. Tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Oh, tell him, tell him, tell him. Tell him what you want. Tell him, tell him, tell him. Oh, tell him what you want. Tell him, tell him, tell him. Oh, tell him what you want. Just call him up and tell him what you want. Oh, Jesus is on the main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on the main line. Tell him what you want. Oh, call him up and tell him what you want. The reason I called Brianne up here is because we were in Ruleville and I was trying to do something because the kids were getting bored. Gilliard was 2 hours late. I liked Brianne's voice. So we got up and she helped me sing Jesus is on the main line. That's why I called you up here.
I know.
Okay.
I was like, I hope she don't see me.
Okay. Now, Miss Hamer, everybody thought her song was This Little Light of Mine, because that's what she was known for, that song. But her song was Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. This is your boy, let my people go, okay? Who's that yonder dressed in red? Let my people go. It must be the children Bob Moses led. Let my people go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Who's that yonder dressed in white? Let my people go. It must be the children for their equal rights. Let my people go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Who's that yonder dressed in black? Let my people go. It must be the hypocrites turning back. let my people go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. I have a little book he gave to me. Let my people go. And every word spell a victory. Let my people go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. That was Miss Hamer's jam. She was short and she leaned to the side. Zaza, do you remember how she leaned to the side and we pumping that fist? Yeah, this is one of the songs that we were singing when that man told me I had to get out of Tallahatchie County, and I went back. Another song I went back when I went to the courthouse singing. You know, I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. And when the spirits say move, I'm gonna move, oh Lord. I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. And when the spirits say move, I'm gonna move, oh Lord. I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. I'm gonna vote when the spirits say vote. I'm gonna vote when the spirits say vote. And when the spirits say vote, I'm gonna vote, oh Lord. I'm gonna vote when the spirits say vote. I go to jail when the spirits say go. I go to jail when the spirits say go. And when the spirits say go, I'm gonna go, oh Lord. I'm gonna jail when the spirits say go. I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. I'm gonna move when the spirits say move. Okay. Another song that she sang was, it was so, and I sing it every time I go to her gravesite, and I would not be right if I talk about Miss Hamer, because Miss Hamer was a very religious person, and before we were getting ready to go to jail or whatever, she would make us sing, and she would sing, she would always, I mean, she was a singing woman. Miss Hamer would always sing, walk with me, Lord, walk with me. Walk with me, Lord, walk with me. While I'm on this freedom journey, I want Jesus to walk with me. Make a way for me now, Lord, make a way for me. Make a way for me now, Lord, make a way for me. While I'm on this freedom journey, I want Jesus to walk with me. Thank you. I just did a little bit of it just to pay homage to Miss Fannie Lou Hamer. Because everybody know about Miss Hamer, don't you? She's the one that said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And we also, when we went to New Jersey to the convention, and she got on the floor and she made her I Question America speech. And they were, and President Johnson called a news conference. When she got into I Question America, she was cut like that. He called a news conference. but he didn't stop nothing. He signed the civil rights bill and the voting rights bill. So, but anyway, she was saying that, and I'm getting ready to conclude this program. It's okay. Well, I'm gonna do our song called "This Little Light of Mine." Everybody sang "This Little Light of Mine." This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, all over Mississippi, I'm gonna let it shine. All over Mississippi, I'm gonna let it shine. All over Mississippi, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, I got the light of freedom, and I'm gonna let it shine. I've got the light of freedom, and I'm gonna let it shine. I've got the light of freedom, and I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, tell Mitt Romney that I'm gonna let it shine. Tell Mitt Romney that I'm gonna let it shine. Tell Mitt Romney I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, Lord, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let your little light shine. Go to Occupy Gainesville. Okay, you read on. Oh, thank you. Y'all make me feel like I'm a celebrity around here.
And you are.
You read them. Okay. Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret Block. You'll be happy to know, Margaret, and for some of the other members of the audience, that we also have some other people who were active in SNCC here in the audience. Kathy Sarah Childs. I don't think you've met her. Margaret, have you met her?
I remember that name.
Yes, yes. Kathy was also in Mississippi. And then Dan Harmeling, who was
That's
here
funny,
locally.
yeah.
You know Dan?
No,
Oh,
but you know the song.
Yes, yes. I don't know if there's anybody that I might have missed who's veterans of the civil rights movement, but just wanted you all to know that there are a few of us here in Gainesville. We got some wonderful questions here.
I told you I'm like Herman Cain.
Oh, okay, no.
Or Rick Perry.
No, you're not. By no means. We have some couple that are very similar. I'm going to put them together. One says, "What would you say is the current state of the civil rights movement in America, and let me combine it with this. You are an inspiration to all of us in the struggle. What can we do to achieve freedom in our lifetime? So I think those two sort of go together. The state of the movement and what we can do.
Is it's fragmented, and it's virtually non-existent. You got fragmented people doing stuff, but it's just, not a civil rights movement. They doing Occupy Wall Street, and I guess this is gonna be as close as you get to a movement, but you can start your own movement. There are a lot of reasons why you should start your own. Organize, that's all I'm telling you. Organize, organize, organize. With that voting rights, the voter ID law, y'all better organize. We organize against Jim Crow. Y'all can organize against that voter ID. Because it might not affect you, but it could affect the outcome of an election. It's simple. You might get another nut in the office. And then what you gonna do? Because you didn't organize enough to go out and challenge that law.
Good point. Okay, someone wants to know, is there anything you wish you had done differently in the movement?
No. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Okay. How do you feel about black youth today and what they've done with the progress you all made in the civil rights movement? What are their strengths and their weaknesses?
I'm really disappointed in the black youth. I did a little workshop with some juveniles earlier today, and I'm asking them, like Marvin Gaye said, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. And what can they do? I preached to them about education. First, you can start by educating yourselves, and then I told them to volunteer. They need to volunteer for something positive. And I just don't know what to say about these youth today. All of them are not bad, but the only ones you're gonna hear about are the ones that do something. They're gonna put them on the news and make a big issue out of it. So what we can do is get people to start mentoring these kids. Don't act like they don't exist, because they live human beings that might mug you if you don't. Like I told those kids today, they were saying something. I told them, look, I'm a big time gangster. So I don't know what y'all, I'm a gangster. That's what I told them. I'm not a criminal.
Okay. I guess in many ways this question is very similar, and you've already addressed it to some extent, but it was another question asking, how do we get young people to get involved in activisms around today's inequality, particularly people who believe this is a post-racial society? First of all, would you speak about that?
This is no post-racial society, and I'm so glad Mr. Obama got elected because he bought the creeps and the racists out. Okay, they out now. So what can we do? We need to find something that the youth will really be interested in. First of all, I can't define what to do for the youth, because the problems are not the same. They're similar, but you don't recognize it. We don't have Jim Crow now. We got Mr. James Crow Esquire. So I don't know what to do except organize, 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 and try to reach the masses. Go to the churches and talk to the youth leaders at the church. Go to the ball games and talk to some of the people at the ball game. That's a good place to catch all of the youth on a Friday night, is at a ball game. Go just walk around and hand them little cards, and just talk to them. Ask them, what's troubling you? What do we need to do to help you? Nobody ever asks these kids, what should we do to help you? We just put them down and push them in a corner and forget about them.
Another question on a different topic. A woman named Winifred Breons wrote a book, and she was here in this very auditorium, called The Trouble Between Us, and it refers to several instances of sexism that occurred within SNCC and COFO and other parts of the civil rights movement. As an activist, can you personally attest that there was any sexism in SNCC, and what are your comments about it?
My comment is, prior to 1964, before the Howard Mafia made it, there was no sexism. We were all in the same boat, and I can't get into, women always bringing their problems up, the women's rights. I'm not against women's rights, don't get me wrong, but we were fighting for human rights. Human rights. And it was no sexism in the movement. It started when, like I said, in 64, the Freedom Summer of 64. At least I didn't know about it, and they didn't practice that with me because they, we just didn't get it. And you got to stand up and let them know, hey, look, I'm not with that program. Take it somewhere else. That's all you got to do is, and I don't know anything about the sexism in the movement because people have a way of always making women issues our issues. Our issues are women. I'm going to say it. Women are standing on our shoulders. So what else can I say? Women have rights, but first we were struggling for human rights. Where were the women when we were getting beat down and going to jail and getting killed? It was women in the movement, but where were all of these women that came out the closet, out of the woodwork? Where were they when we needed them? They waited until we got the Civil Rights Act passed, Voting Rights Act passed, and what is it? I told you I was going to do Rick Perry tonight.
And I'm no better, so I'm not sure.
The women rights and, employment, equal employment and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, they wasn't nowhere.
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
Affirmative
They wasn't nowhere. I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you, they wasn't nowhere. Time we got all this stuff done, they came out talking about women's rights, Women's History Month. Well, where were you when we needed you? That's just a simple question. You're nobody special, and I'm going to tell you like Miss Ella Baker explained it. White women had the right to vote. We didn't. White women could go to any school they wanted to go to. We couldn't. White women could get jobs where we could not get jobs. And then here they are now, they've been oppressed like we were. That ain't even close to it. Where were they when we needed them? They waited until, and it's a historical fact, even from the antebellum all the way up to the civil rights movement. They were nowhere around. But now we supposed to be all, I'm for human rights, I'm for everybody's rights. And I'm not making a distinction between women's rights and nobody else's, because we all have rights, God-given rights. Okay.
All right. One more here that's a little controversial too. Do you feel that the exception, in quotation marks, to the nonviolent protests you advocated for, including the shootout of 1964 you mentioned in your Samuel Proctor interview, does it discredit your efforts in increasing nonviolent protests?
No, it didn't. It saved our lives. We didn't tell you, let me tell you, no, it did not. And I almost said something. No, it did not. What we were supposed to do, stand there and say, here we are, come on, bomb us, take us out and lynch us like you did Mickey and J.E. and Andy. It was time for us to stand up. No, and when they found, it saved our lives, because when they found out that we were seriously gonna kill them first, they left us alone, and we went back to being nonviolent.
One person writes, I'm a young white female. My grandparents are from Arkansas, and part of my family were members of the Klan. It haunts me. What advice would you offer to an activist such as myself in regards to not only coping with, but also working to help America become a better place?
You already got it. You're gonna work to help America become a better place. You are not responsible for what your grandparents and your parents did. They must have done something. They have you as you an activist now, but you're not responsible for that. It's a terrible, terrible history of what the Klan did, like the massacre in Elaine, Arkansas. That's awful. But you're not responsible for what they did. Just make sure that nobody else grow up to do the stuff again.
The last one, many SNCC members eventually traveled overseas, making the civil rights movement a truly international one. What were some of the international activities SNCC members were engaged in? Do you remember some of the things that...
I don't know anything about international until like 74, 75. That's after the movement. I don't know anything, but some of them went, like the Freedom Singers, they went because they were raising funds. But I don't know, I was so far out in the country, we had to pay for daylight. I was out in Tallahatchie County.
Well, you might recall that a bunch of folk like Mrs. Hamer,
Yeah.
John Lewis, they all went to Guinea. It was arranged, I think, by Harry Belafonte, along with the countries, so they got to visit Guinea and Ghana. That was the first, but I think more importantly is that SNCC early on began to understand that our movement was connected to the movements around the world. And one of the things we did early on, if you remember, was to come out against the war in Vietnam.
Yeah, that was in the 70s. I'm talking about the 60s.
Well, that was, remember when Julian was kicked out of the Georgia State Legislature? That was in the 1960s, in the late 60s.
Oh, okay.
Because we had...
But see, I had left in 66. I had gotten
Okay.
out of the movement.
Oh, okay.
I transferred my skills to San Francisco.
Right.
I didn't get out of the movement, never will get out of the movement, because it makes me tick
Yes.
to pick on folks. And I'm not just pick on folks, but people that just so wrong to you, want to just take them and bump their heads together to see if you can knock some sense in it. Yeah, and they also went to China.
Yes.
And then the Freedom Singers, remember the sit-in in Atlanta? It was at the Toll House.
Yes.
When Matt Jones and them bought some stock in the Toll House, because Odinga from Kenya was coming over, and they bought stock in the Toll House, and they waited till he came to show Odinga that although they were stockholders in the Toll House, one of those restaurants down there. They did that to show them that although they were stockholders, they still were not allowed to eat in there. So we were aware of stuff all of the time.
Yes.
We were very aware of stuff. That's what I tell people. I got an education in the movement. I went to San Francisco State, but you know.
So we did get involved early. The war in Vietnam being one of the main ones, and then another which also brought so much negative publicity against SNCC, and of course, Julian Bond, who was the communications director, had been elected to the Georgia State Legislature and was refused his seat because of SNCC's stance against the war. Another thing that got SNCC in a lot of trouble was to take a position in support of the Palestinians' rights and against the occupation, and that, you know, all hell broke loose behind that. So SNCC was, you know, very early on started making the connections between our struggle in this country and the struggles of peoples around the world. Okay, thank you
Okay.
for those questions.
Okay, my time is up, and I thank you for yours. Thank you for listening. No Jim Crow over me, and before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. If you believe in freedom, sing it. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.